Welcome today. My name is Mike Tholfsen. I work on the Microsoft Education Product Team, and we're going to be having Ella, Nevo, and Life do a great hands-on session with Microsoft Learning Zone. And just a couple of things before we get started. One, I already saw a Q&A on this, which is great. This session is going to be recorded, and we will be posting it on the Microsoft Education YouTube channel next week. So if you have friends and neighbors who want to learn about Learning Zone, this whole webinar will be posted there. And then also up in the top, you'll probably see a little Q&A button on that top bar in Teams. If you have questions, the best place to get them answered is up there, because sometimes the chat, the main chat here can go by pretty fast. If you put up in Q&A, we'll make sure folks get to it. And what I'm going to do now is pass it off to Ella. So Ella, I'll put you on screen.
Okay, great. So hi, everybody. Thank you for joining. I'm very happy to be here. My name is Ella Bentov. I'm also from the Microsoft Education team, and we're happy to talk to you today about Microsoft Learning Zone. We will cover what is Learning Zone, what it's about, what's the value for educator, for student, for the school community. We will experience my Learning Zone as a student to see the engaging experience that it provides. And we will build our first lesson or choose a lesson from the gallery to tweak it. And lastly, we will see how to assign and share those lessons with students and get back insights. And before we end, we also have a couple of surprises for you about what's coming up next. So stay tuned for that as well. Mike already covered the housekeeping stuff of this session. So please feel free to, first of all, participate, try everything on your own while we go through the demo, but also to use the Q&A for everything that you want to ask about Learning Zone. We have several attendants from the product team here that are here waiting to answer your questions. So please use the Q&A for that. And what is Microsoft Learning Zone? So Microsoft Learning Zone is a new application that is designed to help you create interactive and personalized learning in minutes using hybrid AI. And it does not only do that, it's a classroom-ready solution. So once you create the lesson, you are able to use it. It's in the classroom or for personal self-paced experiences. You have the full mechanism of assigning it, putting it into Teams or to your learning management system, getting back actionable insights, sharing it with your colleagues, all baked into the solution. We see educators using Learning Zone for multiple different pedagogical purposes based on what they want to do with it, their teaching preferences. So it can be used as an introduction to a topic when you start a new topic in class, as a wrap-up, as a knowledge refresh after vacation, or even for a flipped classroom scenario where you give your students the ability to get the knowledge ahead of time in their own pace, get to the mastery level that is needed for class, and then use the class time for discussions, for debating, for more interactive and higher order type of experiences. So as I said, full classroom solutions. So what we'll do today is we'll start with how to create lessons, how to edit them through the editor with AI or manually. We will also show you the Ready-to-Learn library. We have hundreds of lessons already curated for you, available for all students and educators with any Windows device that you can take, tweak for your own needs, and take it to the classroom. We'll show you how to assign and share your lessons, and then how to get back insights. From students' perspective, what Learning Zone provides is a very rich interactive lesson experience comprised of bite-sized information. So you get content slides complete with images already attached to each content for you. Interactive exercise, we have a wide variety of exercising, including multiple choice questions, true, false, fill the blanks, sort, group, and match questions. And immediate feedback for the students. So as they, and you'll try it for yourself, but as they go through the lessons, when they are trying an activity, they get immediate feedback about what why is it right, why is it wrong, and then the ability to retry it with a different activity and recap it again at the end of the lesson. So basically what we're creating is this personalized learning path for your student, fully generated by AI. And we'll try it in just a second. I will say that Learning Zone is available on any Windows device for teachers. Students can use any device to play the lessons, but teachers can use the Windows device to share it, to assign it, to use the Ready to Learn gallery, to all those things, and for live lesson experiences that I will cover later in this meeting. But to generate the lessons, you do need a Copilot Plus PC device, since we use hybrid AI to generate those lessons. With that said, fresh off the oven, coming soon, and we will have that in the coming weeks before the ISTE conference, we are launching a trial program that will allow you for limited amount of time to generate lessons on any Windows device, with up to 10 slides per lesson. So even if in today's session you will not have the create button, within a few weeks you will have the create button, an ability to try the lessons for limited time, and we will send everybody that is on this call a notification about it with a link back once that is available. We did say that in the beginning and in the registration, but if you haven't done that yet, now's the time to download the Microsoft Learning Zone app in order to participate hands-on in this session. So what you need to do is to go to AKAMS Get LZ to download the application, or alternatively, go to the App Store, search for Microsoft Learning Zone and click download. You should be automatically logged in with your M365 account and to take it from there. And with that, let me move it to Nevo to take us through the demo.
Okay, hi everyone. Sharing my screen real quick. Okay, here we go. So, hi everyone, I'm Nevo. Great to see everybody here. I love the range of origins. It was wonderful seeing the chat. I'm a product manager at the Learning Zone team. And what we're going to do now is we're going to see how the experience looks and how it feels from both student side and educator side. So building off what Ella mentioned, Learning Zone is all about bringing that interactive experience into your classroom. So in order for us to understand that, we're going to first experience a lesson from a student perspective, see how that goes start to finish, the interactive elements, the more educative elements, the more informational elements, how the summary looks. And once we see that, we're going to understand how we can generate those, bring those from the lesson, and actually assign them and bring them into our classroom. So we're going to start, as I said, with the student experience. Now, what we need to do to get going is to go to aka.ms /learnit. Now, we're going to do this together. This stage does require the desktop app. As a student, generally in Learning Zone, you do not need the desktop app. You can experience the lesson on any web browser. Currently, because we're all in teacher accounts, we're going to use the desktop app to see the lesson. So let's do that together. If I just go to any browser, I'm going to click aka.ms /learnit. Now, what I will have here is a link to the lesson, and it will just automatically suggest that I log into the app. I can click open. Okay. And what you're supposed to get at this stage is the Learning Zone app open on the first page of the lesson. Now, we're gonna once we see the screen, we can move forward and experience this as a student. Now, we do have the teacher experience because this is the preview mode for teachers, but we can see exactly how this looks for the student side. So what we're seeing here is the intro slide. This is the first thing that a student would see when entering a lesson that you would share with the students. Later, we're going to see all about how I can share that and what are my tools to bring this into my classroom. Once I get the lesson, I get the intro page, and then I can start the lesson. Now, okay, this is the first slide, and there are a couple of things I can see here. So this is an informational slide. This particular lesson is about classroom technology. So starting with the pre-electric period, I can see that we have images, we can have text with emphasis, and we can also see the progress bar. So this is more about bringing that information that I want to give as context before we're diving deeper into the interactive part. Click and continue. Here's another slide about radio use in the classroom. Very interesting. And once we finish reading that one, click and continue. Okay, now we have the first multiple choice question, the first fill the blanks exercise, which is an interactive exercise. Now, this is one example out of a variety of possible exercise types. You're seeing fill the blanks. We also have multiple choice, true, false, group exercises, sort, match, all meant to balance a teacher's ability to have control and to see what students have and will eventually practice, but on the other hand, have that variety and range of interest. So I will just try my luck this time, but you can definitely see if you have that information. This goes way back, so it can indicate how long you've been in classrooms. Okay, I got 0 out of 4, but what I can do, I can see the mistakes that I made, and I can also see the solution. So if there's anything that I don't know, I can see that we have a reusable slate, and I can see what I actually selected. Now, this already provides, as a student, a quick feedback loop. So I can start when I don't see the solution. I know that I got something wrong. I can think about that for a sec, and only if I want to understand the correct answer, I click Show Solution, and I can learn something from this quick loop. Moving forward, you can see another content slide, reading that one about early calculators. Okay, and now we have a true-false question. Now, a standard 1980s classroom computer had less processing power than the microchip inside a modern USB-C charging cable. That's interesting. I'm going to go with true. Okay, I got that one right. Now, there's a couple of things we can see here. First of all, we can see SPUD. We can see the learning zone character, which accompanies the students and is supposed to provide a more comfortable and an encouraging environment, also having it a bit more lighthearted, helping us go through the lesson. And another thing that we can see here is the written feedback. So if I choose each question, either true or false, I can see short feedback targeted to the specific answer that I've selected. So if I got it right, if I got it wrong, I get a short explanation. I can learn something with a quick learning loop, and I can move forward knowing something that I might have not known before. Now you can see a multiple choice question. Okay, this one's already in quite recent history, so some of you may remember that. I personally do not. Okay, I got that one wrong, but I can see the feedback string. So maybe I learned something from that. Okay, here's another type of exercise, which is the match exercise. I can select options from this one. Now, again, I'm going to select these randomly. When you practice the lesson, try to find the right ones. Look at that. What are the odds? And I can see my mistakes, I can see my successes, and I can move forward through the lesson. Now, once you get to this point, if you practice this by yourself, this is the summary slide. You can configure that to have a specific slide, or you can just go straight through the end of the lesson. And if I decide that I'm ready to finish the lesson, I can see in the progress bar that I'm almost there. Click and continue. Now we have another option that's all about being able to have that customization and that quick learning loop within the Learning Zone app. So the students can now recite questions that they have not experienced, that they might have gotten wrong, see if the feedback and their reflection over it help them learn something new. I'm going to skip that for now. Okay, and now we have the summary page for the student. Now, as a student, I will receive this straight out after the lesson. I can see my score, I can see the time that I spent, and I can actually go over my mistakes, see what I selected, see what I might have gotten wrong. And if I want, I can also have a look at the correct answers that I've selected. And this concludes the basic Learning Zone lesson flow. So we've seen the content and informational pieces, we've seen the interactive pieces, we've seen the learning loops that students can use within the product and within that short bite-sized experience, giving us that full flow on one hand, but on the other hand, having it light and interactive in a way that could engage students. Okay. Now, we have seen how students see Learning Zone, and we have seen how they can interact with it, get that short summary and that learning loop. Now let's see how we can bring Learning Zone into our classrooms by ourselves, either generating a lesson, choosing an existing one, and how we can edit that and even share that with colleagues. If there's any lesson that I liked and that I want to share across my school or across my organization, we can also do that. And eventually how we can assign them and have them distributed through our channels. Now, let's do that together also. What we need to do now is to enter the Learning Zone app as a teacher. So going back here, if you just click the Learning Zone app icon, if you've downloaded Learning Zone and you are registered, you are authenticated with your teacher account, this is the page that you're going to get. Now, a few things here. Under My Lessons, probably those of you who have not used Learning Zone will see a banner here because you don't have any assigned lessons. We're going to change that soon, hopefully. And you might and might not have the Create button. Now, Ella mentioned this before. Generation of lessons is currently available on Copilot Plus PCs. That will change soon with our trial program, so we'll keep you posted on that. So you will be able to have a trial and to have Create Learning Zone lesson on any Windows devices as well. Currently, if you enter and you do not have the Create function, what we're going to do, so we'll be able to all experience this together, is we're going to choose a lesson from the library, which Ella mentioned before as well. We're going to select one of those that we like. We're going to create a copy of that. And then once we have a copy, we can use that as an inspiration and see all those cool editing functions that would have been available if we've created a lesson. So we're going to start with that. And then once we get to the editing stage, each one here could have something that you can interact with. So going to Discover, we can see the full library of lessons currently in Learning Zone, so I can check out the partners here. And there's really something for everyone here on a wide variety of topics. I can filter those here. I can choose a partner. Right now, I'm going to choose a lesson that I personally like. So let's take NASA and Discover the Universe. That's interesting. And let's go with Galaxy Basics. I like that one. So if I got to this stage, again, through the Discover button in the side panel, I can click Use this lesson. And now I'm going to copy this lesson. Now here I have two options. I can either share this with my students right away. We're going to touch on what that means in a bit. For now, I want to copy it so it would be editable using that as inspiration, and getting back to that in a bit. So I copied the lesson. I can see the created copy toast here, so I know that it has been executed. And I could either click that, or going back to home page, I'm going to see that lesson available here and also under My Lessons. So if you've done that, you're already supposed to have a lesson found under the home screen that you can later interact with. And entering it now, I have the edit mode. So now everything here is editable, and we can change that lesson as we see fit. So getting to that stage, now let's see how we can generate a lesson and going to this page from a lesson that we have created from scratch. Okay, so if we have the create button, we're going to click that. And what we're going to see now is the creation form. Now, this is a place where I can specify the learning ideas that I want to bring into class. Now, there are a few levels of detail that I can bring here. If I only have that teaching idea, there's something that I want to bring and I want to test that out, I can do that. And I can also go deeper and deeper into levels of granulation to really make sure that I'm getting the lesson that I want to create for my class, and that's the best fit. So starting with the lesson description, what I want to do, let's say that I'm a physics teacher and I've just recently had a field trip in the Space Museum. And I want to connect that to how I'm teaching thermodynamics. So I can write here a lesson about the laws of thermodynamics. Now I'm going to choose the grade level. Here, let's go with 7th grade. Let's go with 8th, might be more fitting of the subject. And now I can choose the estimated number of slides. So here I can choose the length of the lesson, whether I want it to be a short, compact activity for the beginning of the lesson, or whether I want that to be a longer, more elaborate one. I can choose that. Let's go with 10 slides for now. And here I can also choose the lesson balance. So this is really about the scenario that I'm using, what I want to bring into class. I can either choose to have a lesson that's pure exercises. So if I want to quiz students, if I want to bring that before an exam, for example, test students' knowledge, I can do that. Or on the other hand, I can also have the lesson pure content. So if I want to be only informative, have that contextual introduction, that's also an option. For now, I'm going to stay with a mix. So content and exercises, which is similar to what we've seen in the classroom technology lesson. Now, a bunch of other deeper stuff that I can do here. I can also upload my own file. So if I already have my lesson plan, if I already have my instruction page or grounding material that I want to base the lesson on, I can do that. If I don't have that, we also have the option to use built-in vetted resources. So if I work on thermodynamics, for example, I can write that, and what we're seeing here, and that's free to use, you can try that if you have the create option available, is a built-in capability to use OpenStax textbooks, OpenStax being the largest provider of open source textbooks in the world. And they have a variety of teaching resources that's expert vetted, that's peer reviewed, that you can bring into your classroom to make sure that what you eventually create is tested and verified. So let's choose first law and continue. And I wanted to talk about the field trip, so I can do that here, but let's demo having that in teaching context. I might also use that later. So I can connect that to a recent field trip in the Space Museum. Okay, I like everything here. I could also fill in the standard set. We can also change the languages. We're going to touch on that in a bit. Currently, Learning Zone is available for generation in English and Spanish. It will be expanded very soon to other languages. We're going to touch on that later in the chat. And clicking next. Now, what we will have here is the lesson outline being generated. That means that before we create the final lesson, we are able to see the outline, we're able to see the plan for the lesson. So I can see the lesson from an overview, I can see whether the topics fit my expectations, if there's anything that I want to add, anything that I want to omit, I can do that here. So seeing the points, we have the definitions, the explanations, okay, how it connects to the recent the Field Trip Museum, highlighting how energy changes in spacecraft systems. That's very interesting. That's exactly what I wanted it to touch. And we can also see how we apply the first law of thermodynamics. We got that from the reference in practical context. Okay, nice. So that's pretty much what I wanted. If I want to refine that, I can either do that manually, I can change it, I can edit it, but I can also use this free text. So let's say focus more on practical application. For example, submitting that. And let's see what we're getting from that option. Okay, so this lesson now we're seeing is about it expanded to all laws of thermodynamics, and we can see how it focuses more on examples, on explanations, and having those interactive questions. So really focusing more on the relevance that I've requested. Now, if I generate the lesson, what we're going to have now is a full interactive lesson created based on the outline that we've just seen. So we really want to see that we create those different levels of trust in Learning Zone, so educators know they have their hands on the steering wheel throughout the whole process. At this stage, I'm already confident in the structure, and what I have to edit and to review is only the slides themselves. See that they're fitting in terms of language, they're fitting in terms of level of difficulty, and as we said, we can also fine-tune and edit all of those. With both manual editing tools, everything here is completely changeable and editable, and also AI-based editing tools. So giving you those time savers and the abilities to do what you want to do in a way that doesn't require that full cycle of effort. So starting to refine and edit, here's an example of energy conservation, and here we can see a specific application about space systems. Okay, that connects to the field trip. I love that. And what I can also do is edit the text. We can see the bullet points. If there's anything specific that I want to highlight, I can do that. So design spacecraft systems that control heat and work to keep mechanics running smoothly. Okay, that's an important sentence. Let's highlight that one. And I can also replace the image. So what we see here is an integration of images that we can bring straight into the app. So I can choose the image that is fitting to what I want. We can see the different rocket engines that's on point of the topic. I can just choose a different one. I can crop that if I wish. And what I could also do is upload an image of my own. So if there's any learning content or any image that I want to bring into the table, I could also do that. Okay, let's save it. Now let's see how we can edit the interactive exercises. So this is the fill the blank exercise. As we said before, it's one of a couple. While I do this, you can feel free and browse the different exercises created out of the topic that you've selected. So what we can see here, and my lesson is ready in the meantime, is how we can change this exercise. I can add blanks, I can add distractors. So if I want closed system as always, so what happens with the energy? It's conserved. So I can have that as a blank as well. And what I can also do is add distractors. So I can either add those manually or delete those. And I can also generate distractors using AI. So again, having that time saver and the ability to stay in control while avoiding unnecessary effort. Okay, so I like entropy and I like mass. Nice. So as I did these two, I can go forward and edit every slide. If there is a slide that I don't like altogether, I can also adjust it, either here simplify the language or regenerate it. And if I want the slide to use the same topic, but target it slightly differently, I can also do that. Now, one other interesting feature that we can see here is the nested slides, which is our way of creating and really seeing that our lessons are customized and that they're tailored to our students' needs, so that every student gets their slightly different learning path. Now, if I see an exercise that has a nested exercise, which is what you see here, so that's a conditional slide, meaning that if a student has received this exercise that we see here, but they got it wrong, so they will automatically receive another option to practice the same topic, but from a different perspective. So the exercise that we will see here is the same topic exactly, but giving students another opportunity to rehearse that. So if a student is having difficulties, I could have them instantaneously and automatically try and get a deeper understanding of that and see that they are crunching that topic slightly deeper. Okay, another thing that I can do here is I can go to edit to play mode. So if I want to see how that would look from the student's perspective, we've seen this already. I can also go here and actually check out the full experience. Nice. So once I'm happy with the lesson that I created, I hope you are as well. What I can do now is I can go ahead and save my lesson. Now, what I receive now is a suggestion to review all my slides. The content was AI generated, and this is about responsible AI. So we do want to make sure that all the slides that we created have been reviewed by the educator. So we do recommend to do that. For the demonstration, I'm going to use them anyway. Okay, now we have gotten to this point, and this is the exact point that if you have just selected a lesson from the Ready to Learn gallery, you have this exact screen for your own lesson. And what we're going to see now is how I can actually assign these lessons to my students through various ways. So what I need to do is click Use this lesson, and I have a bunch of different opportunities here. So what I can do now is I can assign the lesson to my learners, which means that I can create a code for sharing the lesson, and they can also access it through a shortcode, or through a link, sorry. We will see that in a sec. I can also share the lesson with my colleagues, which we'll also touch on in a bit. So for now, assigning to learners, I can change the assignment name. I can add a deadline. If there's any note that I want to add, I can also do that. And let's create an assignment. Let's bring that into class. So what I see here is that we have a shortcode created. Now we're not going to see that at the moment, but if a student enters the Learning Zone app, the first thing that they will see on top is the ability to insert the code. So that's a very easy way to access your assigned lesson. And for any other distribution channel that you choose, we can also just copy the link found here, share that via whichever channel is convenient for you as a teacher, and have the students instantaneously have the experience open. And as we mentioned before, while Learning Zone is a Windows app for students, it is available on web browsers as well, on any PC, and also on iPads and tablets in general. Another option that I can see here is to share that link through Microsoft Teams and Google Classroom. So what this would open is simply a channel where I can post the link in the channels that I already use. So that's a convenient entry point to sharing the link wherever is comfortable for me. Now we can also share the lesson via LMS and through Teams assignments. We're going to see that in a bit, and Live is going to share about that. So stay tuned for that option as well. The last thing that I want to show you in this context is the ability to share a lesson with colleagues. Now, this is very important because this allows the school to work in a versatile way around Copilot Plus PCs. So if a teacher or a guiding instructor or an educational instructor has a Copilot Plus PC while other educators might not have them, And I have created a lesson which I love. I think it would work perfectly for my middle school science teachers. I can just have that shared with colleagues. And what I will receive here is a link that I can share with teacher accounts, which will give them instant access to that lesson, which they can share, they can edit, they can do whatever they want with that lesson. They cannot edit the original, so if I'm an educator and I share that, I can be confident that my copy will remain intact and as is, but they can copy that lesson and have that brought to their classrooms. So that means that even one Copilot Plus PC is able to create lessons that could potentially impact the whole school or the whole organization, which opens up a lot of different opportunities. Okay. Now, last thing that we can see here, which I'm not going to show you at the moment, is how we can track outcomes. So once we have completed the Learning Zone flow, I could also track the insights, which we can find in the reports panel, and really see the full report of how the lesson took place, students' grades, and I can also track my teaching and inform it with seeing the different exercises. So if there was a specific exercise that students had a difficult time with, if there's a specific exercise that was a bit that wasn't understood as well, so I can understand that and I can improve my teaching based on that, either in an additional Learning Zone lesson or in class, in person, in whichever way fits me. If you have the app, you can check that out and you can see how that works. But that is for another webinar due to lack of time. Another very cool option, which you can definitely explore, and we're not going to go deeper into now, is creating Kahoot quiz. So besides creating that Learning Zone, that interactive lesson that we've just seen, I could also create a Kahoot quiz straight in Learning Zone. So that means that instead of choosing an interactive lesson, I can choose a Kahoot quiz. I can quickly show you how that looks in the app. So just having that little arrow here, being able to select a Kahoot quiz. Now, once we have that selected, we will have the same flow. I will be able to choose lesson description. I will be able to add my standards. I will be able to add a file. But instead of having that Learning Zone lesson created, which we have just seen, we will have a Kahoot quiz with exercises, images, everything you need to bring that fun, interactive activity into your classroom. And once that is complete, you can open that directly in Kahoot for free using the same credentials that you use for Learning Zone, so almost no friction, and bring that into your classroom straight away within the Kahoot platform. Okay, moving forward and handing it over to Leif to explain about how we can assign Learning Zone lesson within Teams assignments.
Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you. Let me share my screen here. So I said we are going to talk about a new integration that we have today in both in assignment, both inside Teams and your favorite LMS system. It doesn't have to be Teams in this case, right? There could be other things we use. We built that in. It was just come live for everyone just this Monday, so super excited about that. So let me share my screen here and see how this actually works. I said there is a couple of things that, if you see my screen right now, hopefully, share, there we go, and there should be up there, right? Hope that you see it. Yes, so I said the Lesson Zone integration into assignment in both Teams and LTI is just shipped out this week. Super excited about that. It goes several things for you. It allows you to assign to a lesson that you have done already in Learning Zone. The cool thing is for students in this case is they will stay directly in the Teams environment or LMS environment, whatever you use. It also takes automatically your completion percentage for the students into grading, so you can sync those things in your assignment as well. So that's kind of cool end-to-end experience today. So let's get started. In this case, I'm going to talk about two things here, both a teacher and a student. So as Nevo is showing already, we have a set of, let me open my screen here. We have a set of learning zone lessons created already. Now, this is inside Teams. I could have showed this inside our LMS system like Canvas and Moodle as well, but let's just go through the flow inside Teams here. So in this case, I'm in my pop culture class. I'm going to create a new assignment that in this case is all about, what about some Star Wars stuff, right? Who doesn't love Star Wars? Anyways, in this case, talk about physics of Star Wars. I already have, I'm going to share my screen here. I already have a set of lessons already. So, if you haven't set up Learning Zone already, we will have a direct link for you to download Learning Zone. But I have now a set of lessons that I have created already. And now we can actually look at how we expose those things directly inside assignments. So you'll see if I add my instruction here, it's all about my interactive lesson inside Learning Zone. So I'm going to put some instructions here. And now inside assignments, there's a new option for you on the attach menu. So click on attach here. You will see a new lesson called interactive lesson. So interactive lessons is of course going to open up and see all your Learning Zone lessons. I'm going to do it right now. And it will list all the lessons that I created already. So this is all things that I created in the Learning Zone library. Or if I'm going to use some of those pre-existing libraries, I can choose to copy those things and make my own. So all those are built in. And as Ella talked about in the beginning of this class, pretty soon you have ability to create these lessons. If you only have Windows 11 PC, you will often see those things. In this case, I'm talking about my lesson about Star Wars and Newton's law. I'm going to add it to the thing. So this is basically listing all the lessons I can use for my assignment as well. And I can assign it to my students. And I can do that right now. And then as a student, here, I'm going to change my user to a student here. As a student, what I will see here, this is a new lesson for me right now. I will be inside Teams in the first place. I'm not installing any Windows applications, all built in the same environment, and click on my work here. And now I'll go through the motions of doing the lesson itself. So this is all about Newton's law in Star Wars, which is always fun to do, of course. Studying the lesson about Newton's law, the X-Wing. I can choose some multiple questions here. Answer for this thing. Have like a multiple choice here. Again, it's all built inside there. So the student will not leave that environment they're in, either inside the LMS or inside Teams in this case. So this thing's going to be, I think that's equal force, right? And it's going to be, they obviously act on different objects here. All fun to do, and we'll have this to be some loose balance here, right? Cool, check, and great. And then last thing is, of course, it's a math shift. So I'm doing this just quickly to show how this particular experience is for students. And once I'm done, we will then automatically turn it in for the students. So it's kind of one and done for the students. I have my stuff. I have a score here. I close this in my experience. So for a student, this is now done automatically. I'm going through the flow of it. And now if I go back to the teacher, you will see that right now there is one student turned it in right now, which is myself. And we built in now the grading view directly in here. So I'll hold up 2 seconds, see if any people are doing Teams, but inside now, we have a new link called Interactive Lessons. Inside here, you will see the lesson itself that I assigned. So you can see it directly as a student. And I can see all the students as they come along. I can see how people are doing it. And just as never saw before, I can go all the exercises and see people doing it. So it's a quick direction directly inside assignments, both inside Teams as well as the LMS system using as well. So the key thing for the flow here, of course, is the notion of going from creation, adding a link to it, and as a teacher, you can see how all your students in your class are interacting and using the lessons directly from the grading view. So hopefully a very smooth experience for you using it directly inside assignments, inside Teams, or in your LMS system. With that was very quick stuff, but I know that Nevo is going to show us the upcoming, or Ella can show us the upcoming new functionality that's coming in Learning Zone as well. So I'll leave it back to them to take that away, close this webinar.
Thank you, Leif. So I'll share my screen again. And thank you, Nevo and Leif, for the great overview and demos. And as I promised, we're closing this webinar with a couple of new and exciting announcements that are fresh off the oven. So first of all, in terms of Spotlight lessons, we have just started a set of new landing pages. We are releasing every month a timely Learning Zone lesson that is ready to use, that you can use with your classes immediately. And in the article for those lessons, you'll be able to read about the lesson, the purpose of it, why is it timely for that specific month, and what your students will get from it, as well as assign that lesson directly from there. So this month's lesson is the World Environment Day. Is about the World Environment Day that is happening this month, and it's an interactive lesson about biodiversity. We also had a lesson about women's right to vote on Women's International Day, skills around note-taking when the semester started, and more and more. Nevo, if you can share a link to the lesson in the chat, that would be amazing. So that's a great resource for you to try out Learning Zone with your classroom on a monthly basis. We're also happy to share that we'll be releasing 4 new generation languages for Learning Zone very soon, before the next school year. So today, Learning Zone is available in 53 different languages for the UI and for the Ready to Learn gallery. The generation piece is available in English and Spanish. And very soon, we will have Portuguese, Italian, Japanese, and French added to that list. So if you're in one of those locales or regions, good news for you on that. And last but not least, the teach in class capabilities. So early adopters of Learning Zone, what we saw is that sometimes they want to share the lesson for a self-paced experience that Nevo went through today, where the student go through the lesson in their own pace, can go back to exercises as they want to, can try the lesson multiple times. But sometimes what we saw is that they want to teach it in class, and then the value they get is that you can go about your frontal lesson as you would with a PowerPoint slide explaining the content, but you can have knowledge check and activities interleaved into the class to keep your student engaged, to tweak the class based on misconceptions and misunderstandings. And we're adding just that. So in time for EASTI, we will have a new capability to teach in class a lesson. And in that case, the student will go into a really nice lobby, will be added into the lesson, and then the educator will be able to go through the lesson, talk about each of the slides, add their own information. And when it's time to practice, each student gets the opportunity to practice on their own. And then we get the activities results in an anonymous aggregated way back to the front of the class, and allow the educator to speak to those, explain misconceptions, and decide on the next steps of the class. A part of the teaching class that we will add is also the ability for educators to do different types of engagement activities, like celebrating successes, adding timers when the student practice so they'll know how much time is left, or when they have class discussions or group discussions as part of the lesson, and allowed to choose a random volunteer to keep everybody alert. So that is coming at EASTI timeframe for you to try for yourself. And that was our webinar for today. I encourage all of you to go to AKAMS Learning Zone in order to learn more about Learning Zone, read about our success stories and EASTI seal alignment, read about the value proposition, share it with your colleagues, help them download it for themselves. as well as reach out to us. And this is just a set of resources that are available for you on Learning Zone. I want to specifically call out our new Learn course, the second link that we have here, that is just, again, just released and is allowing you to learn about Learning Zone on your own through Microsoft Learn, and also get a professional development credit as part of that. And last but not least, we do have the Microsoft Education community that I encourage you to join at AKAMS Join EIP to learn more about all of our portfolio, not just Learning Zone, but also Teach, learning activities, studies and learn, etc., to participate in discussion, to provide feedback to the product team and shape the product, and to learn about things as soon as they go out and even before. You basically go into this link, sign up, and you're in. And last call to action for today, claim your badge for AI skills for participating in this session. And with that, I'm going to close. Thank you, everybody. Super happy to have you here, and we're here for any additional questions that you have. This slide deck and recordings will be published within a week's time, and we will reach out to you to inform you once the availability of the trial of Learning Zone lesson generation is available for you on any Windows 11 device. Thank you all. Have a great day.